What happens when the people you've poured your entire life into, the very blood that courses through your veins, abandon you in your darkest hour? Do the vibrant colors of a life lived, rich with the traditions of Jalisco and the heartfelt songs of mariachi, simply fade into a monochrome of despair? This was the question that echoed in Elena's mind, a painful counterpoint to the insistent beeping of machines that now dictated the rhythm of her existence. Her hand, once strong and capable, shaping tortillas with practiced grace and stirring pots of simmering mole, now lay frail and trembling on the stark white sheet. The aroma of her childhood, a comforting blend of cilantro, chili, and the sweet earthiness of agave, felt like a distant memory, replaced by the sterile scent of antiseptic. She pictured her small, sun-drenched home, the terracotta tiles warm beneath her feet, the Virgin of Guadalupe watching over her kitchen, and the laughter of her grandchildren filling every corner. Each memory was a vibrant thread in the tapestry of her life, a life woven with the resilience of her ancestors who had tilled the sun-baked fields of Mexico, their spirits as unyielding as the saguaro cactus. A sharp pain, like a sudden desert thorn, pierced through her thoughts, bringing her back to the chilling reality of her hospital room. The fluorescent lights hummed with an indifferent drone, a stark contrast to the warm glow of the candles she lit every Sunday for her ancestors. She had always believed in the strength of family, in the unbreakable bonds of La Familia. But now, as the doctors spoke in hushed tones and the clock ticked away, an insidious fear began to bloom in her heart, a fear that those sacred bonds, for her at least, had finally fractured. The doctor's words were a muffled drone, like the distant buzz of a trapped fly, as Elena drifted in and out of consciousness. "We've called your son, Mateo," a kind-faced nurse explained softly, her voice barely breaking through the fog. "He lives in Nairobi, doesn't he? We've left messages, but—" The unspoken conclusion hung heavy in the air, a cruel weight pressing down on Elena's chest. Mateo, her firstborn, the one she had envisioned carrying on the family name, upholding the traditions they cherished, was nowhere to be found. He was supposed to be her rock, her pillar of strength, but the silence from his end of the world was deafening. Her mind, despite the haze of medication, replayed countless memories of Mateo, his mischievous childhood smile, his earnest promises to always care for her, his graduation day when he stood tall and proud, a testament to her sacrifices. She had sold her most precious possessions, worked tirelessly in the sweltering Nairobi sun, cleaned homes for wealthy families, all to give him the education and opportunities she never had. She remembered the day he left for Nairobi, a city of dreams and possibilities, and how she had pressed a small, silver, miraculous medal into his hand, a piece of her heart traveling with him. Now that medal felt like a forgotten relic, her efforts like dust scattered by the winds of indifference. A tear, hot and stinging, traced a path down her wrinkled cheek, a testament to the profound ache in her soul. It wasn't just the physical pain of her illness, but the deeper, more insidious wound of abandonment. The vibrant hues of her Mexican heritage, the warmth of a loving family, felt like they were slipping away, leaving her stranded in a cold, desolate landscape. Days bled into a week, each sunrise bringing a fresh wave of disappointment. Mateo remained a ghost, his absence a gaping wound in Elena's already fragile state. The nurses, kind and professional, offered polite apologies, but their gazes held a pity that Elena found unbearable. "Still no word, Mrs. Rodriguez," they'd say, their voices hushed, as if fearing to disturb the quiet despair that had settled over her room. She yearned for the sound of his voice, the touch of his hand, a confirmation that the years of love and sacrifice had not been in vain. She remembered the vibrant fiestas in their small Kenyan community, where Mexican and Spanish traditions mingled with local customs, creating a unique tapestry of culture. Mateo, as a young boy, would dance with infectious energy, his laughter echoing through the makeshift community hall. He had always been so full of life, so connected to their shared heritage, so proud of the stories his abuela told of their distant homeland. How could that boy, so full of warmth and promise, now be so utterly unreachable? The doctors began to speak in terms of next steps, of difficult decisions, of a future that looked increasingly bleak. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic zapateado of fear and loneliness. She clutched a small, worn rosary, its beads smooth from years of prayer. "Madre de Dios," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Don't let me die alone. Don't let my son forget me." The image of a solitary agave plant in a vast, empty desert came to mind, its strength failing, its roots withering away. Then came the unexpected, a cruel twist delivered not by a phone call or a hospital visit, but through the digital ether. One of the younger nurses, a bright-eyed woman named Asha, who often shared stories of her own family, approached Elena's bed with a look of stunned disbelief. "Mrs. Rodriguez?" She began hesitantly, her voice laced with a mixture of shock and indignation. I think you need to see this." She held up her phone, its screen glowing with an image that pierced Elena's heart with icy precision. It was a photograph of Mateo, undeniably her son, beaming beside a beautiful, much younger woman. They were at a lavish party, a vibrant scene of laughter and celebration, surrounded by what looked like opulent decorations. But it wasn't just the image of her son enjoying himself that struck Elena. It was the caption beneath it, in Mateo's wife's familiar, florid script, celebrating life's blessings, so grateful for my wonderful husband and this amazing new chapter. Blessed Aish luxury life mash making memories. The date stamp showed it had been posted just hours after the hospital had made their most urgent calls to Mateo. The revelation hit Elena like a physical blow, stealing her breath and clouding her vision. Her daughter-in-law, Sophia, a woman Elena had always found a bit superficial, had chosen this moment to parade their new life, while Elena lay fighting for hers. The vibrant colors of Sophia's dress, the sparkling glasses, the carefree smiles, it all felt like a mockery of Elena's own fading world. The doubt-making memories hashtag felt particularly cruel. What about the memories of her own mother, lying alone and abandoned? The physical pain, which had been a constant companion, now seemed secondary to the searing ache in Elena's soul. The image on the phone screen had ignited a firestorm of emotions: betrayal, hurt, anger, and a profound sense of humiliation. How could her son, the boy she had raised with such love and sacrifice, be so oblivious to her suffering? How could his wife, Sophia, display such blatant disregard, posting about their blessed life while Elena teetered on the brink? It was a cruelty that transcended language, a betrayal that cut deeper than any illness. Elena remembered the countless times she had welcomed Sophia into their home, teaching her the family recipes, sharing stories of their vibrant Mexican culture, and offering her unwavering support. She had always tried to bridge the cultural gap between them, embracing Sophia's modern sensibilities while hoping she would also embrace their traditions. But now, it felt as though Sophia had not only rejected their heritage, but also Elena herself. The image wasn't just a picture, it was a testament to a callous disregard, a public declaration of indifference. A choked sob escaped Elena's lips, a sound of profound grief that seemed to echo in the sterile confines of her room. The nurse, Asha, quickly took the phone away, her own eyes filled with a fresh wave of sympathy and anger. Elena turned her face to the window, the bustling Nairobi cityscape a blur of indifference. The vibrant world outside, the world her son and daughter-in-law so eagerly embraced, felt utterly alien to her now. She was an anchor, dragging, in a sea of forgotten memories and broken promises. News, like a persistent desert wind, travels fast, especially within the close-knit Kenyan-Mexican community. Though Elena had tried to keep her hospital stay quiet, whispers began to circulate. The story of Mateo's absence and Sophia's public display of merriment spread like wildfire, carried by hushed phone calls and sympathetic glances. Elena, though confined to her bed, could almost feel the weight of their judgment, not for her, but for her son and his wife. It was a shame that burned her more fiercely than any fever. She envisioned the women of the community, her dear friends, their faces etched with concern and disappointment as they discussed the matter over cups of café de olla. She could hear their murmurs, their questions. How could Mateo do this to his madre? What kind of daughter-in-law posts such things? Elena had always prided herself on raising a respectful and loving son, someone who upheld the respeto central to their culture. Now, Mateo's actions, or lack thereof, cast a shadow over her own reputation. The hospital room, once a place of quiet suffering, now felt like a public forum for her private humiliation. Elena pulled the thin blanket closer, as if to shield herself from the invisible eyes that she imagined were watching, judging. The vibrant threads of her cultural pride, once so strong and interwoven, felt frayed and vulnerable. She was not just battling an illness, she was battling the erosion of her legacy, the unraveling of the family name she had worked so hard to uphold. Just as Elena was sinking deeper into despair, convinced she would face this ordeal alone, an unexpected visitor arrived. Not Mateo, not Sophia, but her niece, Isabella. Isabella, a fiery young woman who had inherited Elena's strength and independent spirit, burst into the room like a ray of sunshine, her eyes flashing with a mix of concern and indignation. She had heard the whispers, seen the post, and immediately dropped everything to be by Elena's side. Isabella, though born and raised in Kenya, carried the Mexican heritage proudly, speaking fluent Spanish and embracing their traditions. She was a breath of fresh air, a living testament to the values Elena had tirelessly instilled. "Tia Elena," she exclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. "How could they? How could Mateo be so blind?" She held Elena's hand, her grip firm and comforting, a stark contrast to the distant coldness Elena had come to expect. Elena looked at Isabella, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Perhaps she wasn't entirely alone. Perhaps the seeds of family loyalty and cultural pride had taken root in someone, even if not in her own son. Isabella's presence was a balm to her wounded soul, a reminder that not all of her efforts had been in vain. The Virgen de Guadalupe on Elena's rosary seemed to gleam a little brighter, a silent promise that grace could still be found even in the darkest corners. Isabella, with a tenacity that mirrored Elena's own, immediately took charge. She spoke to the doctors, demanded answers, and made sure Elena was receiving the best possible care. More importantly, she tried to contact Mateo again, leaving him a furious voicemail that left no room for misunderstanding. "Mateo!" She'd seethed into the phone, her voice trembling with anger. "Your mother is in the hospital fighting for her life. How can you be celebrating while she's alone? This is not who we are." Elena, listening from her bed, felt a pang of conflicting emotions. While grateful for Isabella's fierce loyalty, a part of her still clung to the hope that Mateo would come to his senses on his own. She wanted him to realize his mistake, to feel the pull of his conscience, not to be shamed into action by a younger cousin. Her heart ached for a reconciliation, for the son she remembered, not the stranger who had abandoned her. She yearned for the sound of his voice, filled with remorse, begging for her forgiveness. Later, as Isabella sat by her bedside, Elena whispered, "Don't be too hard on him, mija. He's just lost his way." Even in her pain, a mother's love remained, a stubborn ember glowing amidst the ashes of betrayal. She thought of the stories of the Llorona, the weeping woman, whose lament was for her lost children. Elena felt a similar, though less tragic, despair, a mother's silent wail for a son who had strayed too far from her embrace. Isabella, however, was not one to back down. She suspected there was more to Matteo's behavior than simple indifference. She began to subtly investigate, asking around the community, looking for clues. It didn't take long for the pieces to start coming together. Whispers suggested that Sofia had been increasingly controlling, slowly isolating Matteo from his family and their cultural roots. She had always seemed dismissive of their traditions, preferring a more modern and sophisticated lifestyle. One afternoon, a tearful Maria, a distant relative and a close friend of Sofia's before their recent estrangement, visited Elena. Maria confessed that Sofia had intentionally been intercepting calls and messages from Elena, convincing Matteo that his mother was demanding and interfering. Sofia had painted a picture of Elena as a burden, a drain on their resources, someone who would hold Matteo back from achieving his potential in the glittering world of Nairobi's elite. The revelation was a bitter pill for Elena to swallow. It wasn't just Matteo's abandonment, it was Sofia's deliberate manipulation, a calculated act of cruelty designed to sever the most sacred of bonds. The image of the Dia de los Muertos altars, decorated with offerings for departed loved ones, flashed in Elena's mind. Sofia wasn't just neglecting a living relative, she was desecrating the very spirit of family, the foundation of their heritage. The truth, when it finally revealed itself, did so with the sting of a scorpion. Sofia, it turned out, harbored a deep-seated resentment towards Elena and her Mexican heritage. She saw it as an embarrassing relic, a primitive culture that clashed with her aspirations of being part of Nairobi's upper crust. She had systematically, subtly, poisoned Matteo's mind, convincing him that his mother's traditions were holding him back, that he needed to shed his past to truly succeed. Elena remembered fleeting moments, barely noticed at the time, when Sofia would subtly mock her Spanish phrases or dismiss her traditional cooking. She had attributed it to a difference in upbringing, a generational gap, never imagining the malicious intent behind it. The vibrant Papel Picado banners, once symbols of joy, now felt like fragile paper, easily torn by Sofia's insidious influence. A new kind of pain settled in Elena's heart, a colder, sharper ache than before. It wasn't just that Matteo hadn't come. It was that he had been actively prevented, manipulated by his own wife. The realization was a devastating blow to her maternal pride. Her son, her strong, intelligent Matteo, had been so easily swayed, so easily made to forget the very essence of who he was. The seed of doubt about Matteo's own character, however, began to take root. Was he truly a victim, or simply a willing participant in his own betrayal? Despite the emotional turmoil, Elena's physical condition began to stabilize, thanks in large part to Isabella's unwavering care and advocacy. The doctors, impressed by Isabella's dedication, gave Elena a cautious prognosis for recovery. Isabella, meanwhile, was not content to simply let Matteo and Sofia get away with their callousness. She believed Elena deserved an apology, a confrontation, and above all, the truth. Isabella spent hours by Elena's bedside, recounting stories of their family, reminding Elena of the strong, resilient woman she was. She played traditional Mexican music on her phone, the melancholic strains of rancheras filling the sterile room, bringing a tearful smile to Elena's face. These were not just songs. They were echoes of home, of identity, of a culture that refused to be silenced. Slowly, painstakingly, Elena began to regain her strength. Her voice, once a fragile whisper, grew steadier. Her eyes, once clouded with despair, now held a flicker of their former fire. Isabella's presence was a constant source of comfort, a tangible link to the vibrant life Elena had almost lost. She was a beacon, guiding Elena through the darkest waters, helping her remember the strength of her own corazon. Isabella, incensed by Sofia's public display of indifference, decided to fight fire with fire. With Elena's hesitant permission, she crafted a powerful, emotionally charged post on her own social media, directly addressing Sofia's previous update. She carefully detailed Elena's critical condition, Matteo's absence, and the pain caused by Sofia's celebratory post. She included a heartfelt plea for prayers and support, and a subtle but undeniable call for accountability. The post went viral within their local Kenyan-Mexican community and beyond. People were outraged, sharing Isabella's words, expressing their shock and disgust. Comments flooded in, condemning Matteo and Sofia, offering support and love to Elena. It was a digital grito, a collective cry of indignation that rippled through the online world. The shame and humiliation that had once weighed Elena down now shifted, resting squarely on Matteo and Sofia's shoulders. Elena, watching the numbers climb, the comments pouring in, felt a strange mix of vindication and sorrow. She had never sought public attention, but Isabella's bold move had brought a wave of solidarity that warmed her heart. It was a testament to the power of community, a reaffirmation that their shared heritage, their values of family and respect, were not to be trampled upon. The public outcry was swift and devastating for Sofia and Matteo. Their carefully constructed facade of a blessed life began to crumble under the weight of condemnation. Sofia's initial post, once a symbol of their aspirational lifestyle, now stood as a monument to their callousness. Businesses Sofia was associated with began to distance themselves, and invitations to exclusive events mysteriously stopped arriving. The luxury life they so desperately flaunted was suddenly tainted. Matteo, bombarded with angry messages and calls from concerned relatives and friends, finally started to feel the heat. He saw the scathing comments, the shared posts, the undeniable evidence of public opinion turning against them. The world he had tried so hard to build, separate from his roots, was now crumbling around him, not because of his mother's demands, but because of his own and his wife's actions. Elena, from her hospital bed, observed the unfolding drama with a quiet resignation. She felt no joy in their downfall, only a profound sadness that it had come to this. She had always believed that true wealth lay in family, in community, in the richness of one's heritage, not in material possessions or superficial displays. The ofrenda for the Dia de los Muertos was not just about remembering the dead. It was about honoring the living, about maintaining connections that transcended time and space. Finally, after days of agonizing public pressure, Matteo called. His voice, when Elena heard it, was not the confident, resonant voice she remembered, but a strained, hesitant whisper. He sounded broken, defeated, a far cry from the carefree man in Sofia's picture. He mumbled apologies, explanations, blaming Sofia, blaming the pressure, blaming everything but his own choices. Elena listened in silence, her heart a tangled knot of emotions. A part of her yearned to forgive him instantly, to soothe his distress, to pull him back into her embrace. But another part, the part that had endured days of fear and abandonment, remained guarded. His words felt hollow, lacking the genuine remorse she longed to hear. He still didn't seem to fully grasp the depth of his betrayal, the profound pain he had inflicted. "Matteo," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "it's not just about me being sick. It's about what we are. It's about familia." The weight of her words hung in the air, a challenge, a plea, a desperate attempt to reignite the spark of connection that had almost been extinguished. She was not just speaking for herself, but for the countless generations of their ancestors, for the spirit of their Mexican heritage that coursed through her veins. Matteo, humbled by the public outcry and Elena's quiet strength, eventually came to the hospital. He arrived alone, his eyes red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped. The confident facade he usually wore had completely vanished, replaced by a raw vulnerability. He confessed to Elena in hushed tones the extent of Sophia's manipulation, her constant criticisms of his family, her subtle threats to leave him if he did not conform to her vision of their perfect life. He spoke of the suffocating pressure he had felt, caught between his mother's love and his wife's demands. He admitted to feeling ashamed of his heritage in Sophia's presence, to downplaying his Mexican roots to fit into her social circles. He recounted how Sophia had intercepted messages, deleted voicemails, and crafted elaborate excuses to keep him from visiting Elena, painting her as a burden, a source of constant drama. Elena listened, her heart aching for the son she saw before her, so clearly torn and confused. She understood the power of manipulation, the insidious way it could warp one's perception. Yet, a part of her still wrestled with the question of his culpability. How much of his actions were truly Sophia's influence, and how much was a willing choice to abandon his mother in her time of need? The vibrant colors of their heritage, once a source of pride for Mateo, had been muted by the ambition and shallowness of another. Even as Mateo poured out his heart, a fundamental truth remained unspoken, a chasm between them that his words couldn't bridge. Elena saw it in his downcast eyes, in the way he avoided her gaze when he spoke of Sophia's power over him. He was remorseful, yes, but not fully accountable. He blamed Sophia, but not himself, for allowing her to isolate him, for choosing ambition and social climbing over the unwavering love of his mother. Elena, wise with years and tempered by suffering, knew that true repentance required more than just an explanation. It required a deep, personal understanding of one's own failings. She remembered her abuela saying, "The most beautiful flowers grow from the deepest roots." Mateo had allowed his roots to be severed, and the bloom of his character had withered as a result. She didn't berate him, didn't chastise him further. Instead, she simply held his hand, a silent gesture that spoke volumes. The connection they shared was too deep to be completely broken, but it was irrevocably scarred. The vibrant music of their shared past, the sons, jarochos, and corridos, now carried a melancholic undertone, a reminder of what had been lost. Sophia, meanwhile, was in a full-blown crisis. Her social media had been taken down, her reputation in tatters, and her carefully constructed world of luxury was crumbling around her. She was furious, blaming Mateo for allowing this to happen, refusing to take any responsibility for her own actions. She arrived at the hospital in a flurry of designer clothes and furious accusations, demanding that Elena tell everyone to back off. The confrontation was explosive. Isabella, who had been sitting with Elena, rose to her feet, her eyes blazing. She would not allow Sophia to further distress her tia. A heated argument erupted, with Isabella fiercely defending Elena and their family's honor, while Sophia launched into a tirade of self-pity and blame. Mateo, caught in the middle, looked utterly helpless, a man stripped of his agency. Elena watched the spectacle with a weary resignation. This was the true face of Sophia, a woman devoid of empathy, consumed by vanity and ambition. It was a stark contrast to the warmth and communal spirit of her own culture, where respect for elders and the sanctity of family were paramount. The scene, though distressing, served a purpose. It laid bare the painful truth for Mateo to see. As Sophia's venomous words filled the room, something shifted in Mateo. He looked at his wife, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time without the rose-tinted glasses of aspiration. He saw not the beautiful, sophisticated woman he had fallen for, but a cruel, manipulative stranger, consumed by a destructive pride. He saw the reflection of his own shame in her eyes, a mirror to his own weakness. The realization hit him with the force of a powerful tormenta. He had allowed this woman to sever his ties, to poison his mind, to make him abandon the very person who had given him everything. The blessed life he had pursued with such fervor was nothing more than a gilded cage, and he, Not his mother was the prisoner. The vibrant tapestry of his heritage, the strength of his family, had been sacrificed for a mirage. "Enough, Sophia!" Mateo's voice, though still shaky, held a newfound authority. He stepped between his wife and his mother, a silent declaration that he would no longer stand by and watch his family be attacked. The change in him was palpable, a fragile but undeniable reawakening. The music of their culture, once a distant echo, began to resonate more strongly within him, reminding him of his true identity. Sophia, stunned by Mateo's unexpected defiance, simply stared at him, her carefully constructed composure finally cracking. Her face, usually so composed, contorted into a mask of rage and disbelief. She had never envisioned Mateo standing up to her, not after all her efforts to mold him into her ideal partner. The silence that followed her departure was deafening, heavy with the weight of shattered expectations and broken vows. Mateo watched her go, a mix of relief and profound sadness washing over him. The woman he had married, the life he had built with her, was crumbling before his eyes. It was a painful end to a chapter he had once believed was his glorious beginning. Yet, as he turned back to his mother, a sense of liberation, however fragile, began to bloom in his chest. He was no longer bound by Sophia's manipulations, no longer chasing a superficial dream. Elena, witnessing the raw emotion on her son's face, felt a glimmer of hope pierce through the lingering hurt. This was not the reunion she had always dreamed of, but it was a beginning, a first step towards healing. The warmth of the Kenyan sun streaming through the hospital window felt a little less harsh, a little more comforting, as if nature itself was offering a fragile embrace. In the weeks that followed, Mateo began a slow, arduous journey of rediscovery and repentance. He moved out of the luxurious apartment he shared with Sophia, severing ties completely. He spent hours by Elena's bedside, not just offering apologies, but truly listening to her stories, soaking in the wisdom of her years. He asked about their ancestors, about the traditions he had so carelessly dismissed, about the history that connected them to their vibrant Mexican heritage. Isabella, cautiously optimistic, guided him, lending him books on Mexican art and history, playing traditional music, and encouraging him to speak in Spanish. Mateo, once so fluent, found his tongue stumbling at first, a poignant reminder of how much he had allowed himself to lose. He started to help around the house, fetching groceries, cooking simple meals, rediscovering the joy of tangible service, a stark contrast to the sterile world of his former life. Elena, watching him, felt a fragile hope bloom in her heart. He was like a lost seedling, slowly turning towards the sun, seeking nourishment from the soil he had once abandoned. The aromas of frijoles and chiles, once a distant memory, slowly began to return to her world, not just in her imagination, but in the comforting reality of Mateo's efforts to reconnect with their shared culinary heritage. Forgiveness, Elena knew, was not a simple act, but a complex, multi-layered process, like unraveling a tightly wound skein of yarn. While her love for Mateo remained unwavering, the hurt, the betrayal, and the profound disappointment still lingered. She couldn't simply erase the pain of his absence, the humiliation of Sophia's public display. It would take time and genuine, sustained effort on Mateo's part to truly bridge the chasm that had formed between them. She spoke to him about the importance of respeto, not just for elders, but for one's own identity, one's own heritage. She reminded him that true strength lay not in material wealth, but in the richness of one's character, the integrity of one's spirit. Mateo, for his part, listened intently, his eyes reflecting a newfound understanding, a humble acceptance of her words. He began to volunteer at a local community center that supported Mexican and Spanish diaspora in Kenya, actively seeking to reconnect with the culture he had abandoned. The hospital room, once a place of profound despair, slowly transformed into a space of cautious healing. The air, no longer thick with unspoken grievances, now carried the faint scent of hope, a gentle breeze promising new beginnings. Elena, though still recovering, felt her own spirit mend, piece by agonizing piece. The vibrant Dia de los Muertos altars, once a symbol of what was lost, now represented a renewed connection to their ancestors and the unwavering power of family. Elena eventually returned home, a quiet triumph in itself. Isabella, ever the devoted niece, helped settle her back in, making sure her home was comfortable and welcoming. Mateo, now a constant presence, took on the responsibility of her care with a newfound dedication. He learned to cook her favorite traditional dishes, the kitchen once again filled with the comforting aromas of Mexico, a far cry from the sterile hospital food. One evening, Mateo prepared a modest but heartfelt feast: enchiladas rojas, arroz con leche, and fresh agua de Jamaica. It wasn't the lavish party Sofia had posted about, but it was a feast of love, of reconnection, of shared heritage. Elena eventually returned home, a quiet triumph in itself. Isabella, ever the devoted niece, helped settle her back in, making sure her home was comfortable and welcoming. Mateo, now a constant presence, took on the responsibility of her care with a newfound dedication. He learned to cook her favorite traditional dishes, the kitchen once again filled with the comforting aromas of Mexico, a far cry from the sterile hospital food. One evening, Mateo prepared a modest but heartfelt feast: enchiladas rojas, arroz con leche, and fresh agua de Jamaica. It wasn't the lavish party Sofia had posted about, but it was a feast of love, of reconnection, of shared heritage. Elena sat at her small kitchen table, a smile gracing her lips, watching Mateo move around with an ease she hadn't seen in years. He was no longer the lost boy, but a man finding his way back to his true self. As they ate, sharing stories and laughter, Elena realized that this was the true blessed life, a life rich not in material possessions, but in the warmth of family, the comfort of tradition, and the unwavering power of love. The vibrant colors of their culture, once faded, began to glow again, illuminating their small home with a quiet, enduring joy. The days settled into a comfortable rhythm. Mateo continued his volunteer work, learning to play the guitarra and sing corridos with the community, his voice gaining a deeper resonance as he embraced his heritage. He no longer chased the fleeting glamour of Sofia's world, finding genuine fulfillment in reconnecting with his roots. He even started teaching Spanish to the younger children in the community, passing on the language he had almost forgotten. Elena watched him, her heart swelling with a quiet pride. She saw the boy she had raised, the essence of Mateo, slowly re-emerging. There was an unspoken promise in his actions, a commitment to never again stray so far from his family, from his identity. He had learned a harsh lesson, and it had transformed him. The painful past was not forgotten, but it was slowly being woven into a new, stronger tapestry of their lives. The vibrant papel picado banners, which Isabella had hung in Elena's home, now fluttered gently in the breeze, no longer fragile, but a testament to the resilience of their spirit. They were a reminder that even after the darkest storm, the colors of hope and renewal could always be found. One afternoon, Mateo sat with Elena, showing her pictures of the community center, his face alight with enthusiasm. He had started a small garden there, growing chiles, cilantro, and maize, connecting the children to the agricultural traditions of their Mexican ancestors. He even spoke of starting a cooking class, teaching them Elena's recipes, ensuring that their culinary heritage would be passed down through generations. Elena listened, her heart overflowing. This was the legacy she had always hoped for, a continuation of their culture, a vibrant bridge between the past and the future. Mateo was not just reconnecting, He was becoming a guardian of their traditions, a testament to the enduring power of family and heritage. He had taken the painful lessons of abandonment and transformed them into a force for good, ensuring that no one else in their community would feel the isolation she had endured. The vibrant hues of a life lived, rich with the traditions of Jalisco and the heartfelt songs of mariachi, were no longer fading. They were rekindling, shining brighter than ever, fueled by the love and dedication of a son who had found his way home. The Dia de los Muertos altars would not just remember the departed, but celebrate the living, the connections that transcended time and hardship. As Elena's health continued to improve, a quiet strength settled upon her. She no longer dwelt on the pain of the past, but embraced the renewed joy of the present. Mateo's presence was a constant source of comfort, a testament to the resilience of their bond. Isabella remained a fierce and loyal ally, her fiery spirit a beacon of hope and strength. The community, having witnessed their journey, embraced them with even greater warmth and support. One evening, as the sun set over the Nairobi skyline, casting long golden shadows, Mateo played his guitarra for Elena. He sang a traditional canción, his voice filled with a newfound tenderness and understanding. The melody, familiar and comforting, filled the small house, a beautiful harmony of tradition and reconciliation. Elena closed her eyes, a peaceful smile on her face, listening to the music of a family reborn. This was not the ending she had envisioned, not the dramatic confrontation she might have once desired, but it was a far more profound and meaningful resolution. It was a testament to the enduring power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the unbreakable bonds of familia that, even when tested, could always find a way to heal and flourish. Even amidst the newfound harmony, subtle shadows sometimes lingered. Elena, in quiet moments, would still recall the sharp sting of betrayal, the fear of being truly alone. And Mateo, despite his dedication, carried the weight of his past actions, the knowledge of how close he had come to losing everything. These weren't burdens, but rather quiet reminders, like the faint echoes of a distant storm, urging them to cherish the present. The community, too, though supportive, remembered. Sophia's name was rarely mentioned, a silent acknowledgement of her destructive role, a testament to the lasting impact of her choices. This collective memory served as a cautionary tale, a reinforcement of the values of respect and family that were so deeply ingrained in their culture. It was a reminder that actions, especially those that wound, have lasting consequences. Elena understood that healing was not about forgetting, but about integrating the pain into the larger narrative of one's life. Like the intricate patterns of a serape, the dark threads enhance the beauty of the vibrant ones, creating a richer, more complex tapestry. The past had shaped them, but it no longer defined them. Weeks later, a letter arrived, addressed to Elena. The handwriting was unfamiliar, elegant, and precise. Elena opened it with trepidation. It was from Sophia, a brief, formal note. She apologized, not with heartfelt remorse, but with a stiff, almost clinical tone, for the distress she had caused. She mentioned that she was moving away, starting a new chapter, hinting at the complete collapse of her previous life. Elena read the letter, then handed it to Mateo. He read it silently, his face unreadable. There was no emotion in Sophia's words, no genuine contrition, only a superficial attempt to tidy up loose ends. It was a stark reminder of the woman she was, incapable of true empathy or understanding. The letter served not as a moment of reconciliation, but as a final, definitive closure, a clear demarcation between their worlds. "She'll never truly understand, will she?" Mateo said, his voice quiet. Elena simply shook her head. Some wounds, she knew, were too deep, some hearts too hardened by ambition to ever truly open. The letter was a footnote, a small, insignificant ripple in the now calm waters of their lives. The vibrant spirit of their Mexican culture, rooted in genuine human connection, remained untouched by Sophia's superficial attempts at amends. Life, as it always does, continued its gentle flow. Elena, fully recovered, now spent her days surrounded by the warmth of her family and community. Mateo, a changed man, was a constant source of joy and pride, not just for Elena, but for everyone who knew him. He had found his true home, not in the glittering, superficial world he once chased, but in the rich tapestry of his heritage, in the unwavering love of his mother, and in the vibrant heart of his community. One evening, as a soft breeze carried the scent of jasmine through her window, Elena sat on her porch, watching Mateo teach his young daughter, Elena Victoria, to dance the jarabe tapatio. The little girl, her tiny feet mimicking her father's steps, giggled with delight, her laughter echoing the joy that now filled their lives. The music, lively and spirited, filled the air, a testament to the enduring legacy of their culture, passed down through generations. Elena closed her eyes, a profound sense of peace settling over her. She had collapsed, her world had almost crumbled, and her son had, for a time, abandoned her. But from the ashes of betrayal, a new, stronger family had emerged, rooted deeply in love, tradition, and the unbreakable spirit of their Mexican-Spanish heritage. Her heart, once broken, was now overflowing, a testament to the beautiful, unpredictable journey of life and the ultimate triumph of a mother's love. The question that started her journey, what happens when the people you've poured your entire life into abandon you in your darkest hour? Was answered not with despair, but with the reaffirmation of enduring love, resilient culture, and the discovery of where the heart's true home truly lies.